everyone, it's Mariana, and let's talk about season 1 of Westworld. If you haven't seen the series yet, please go watch Westworld, especially if you enjoy the topic of artificial intelligence and humanity. It's a great show, it has a lot of potential, it is worth your time, so go check it out, give it a try, and then come back so we can talk about it, because this video is going to have all of the spoilers for season 1 of Westworld. And for those of you who have seen the show and have been asking me to talk about it, let's do this. Westworld, of course, is the new HBO series that finished its first season in December. It's based on a film under the same name, and this is a sci-fi western thriller set in a western-themed park filled with very human-like androids where rich people can go to essentially do things they can't do in the real world. Overall, I really enjoyed the season, even though there were some episodes in the middle that I thought were a bit slow, at least for my taste. The first few episodes had me hooked from the very beginning, and then episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10 were excellent as well. I thought the show really found its footing in the second half of the season. The strongest parts of the season for me were, of course, the acting, particularly when it came to Anthony Hopkins and Evan Rachel Wood, as well as what the show tried to tackle thematically, which I will talk about in a bit. I also really appreciated the world building, even though a Western setting wouldn't be my first choice for a park like this. I still thought that the whole setup and the way they showed it from different perspectives behind the scenes and in the park was very interesting. There were a few things they could have explained better as far as the rules and how things work, and the security within the facility was so conveniently bad when it needed to be in order for the plot to go forward, but these details didn't really bother me too much. Between the few different storylines and different timelines we had going on, this is the kind of show that's not just interesting to watch once, but is actually really interesting to watch again once all of the reveals are done with. And I actually enjoyed it much more on my second viewing, and yes, I already rewatched the entire season, than I did initially. Not that I didn't like it initially, but on my rewatch I was able to really appreciate all of the hints and details that are sprinkled throughout every single episode. There is so much dialogue that gains a new meaning once you know the whole story, particularly the things that Ford says to Bernard, some interactions that Bernard has with other people, and the way his memories are portrayed that just heavily foreshadows the reveal of him being a host. It also is so much more obvious why the man in black treats everyone in the park as an old friend, and the significance of him telling Dolores that after all these years she still doesn't remember him. There are fun little bits, like in the beginning when young William first enters the park, the last thing that he has to do is choose between a white hat and the black hat, and by the end we all obviously know the transition he goes through and that he no longer is the man in the white hat. Also, the host who welcomes him into the park is Angela, who shows up in the Wyatt storyline, which I somehow missed entirely watching the show the first time, probably because I watched the episodes week to week as they were airing and made the decision not to read any of the Reddit discussions. So there were a lot of things that I missed the first time around, and I'm sure some of you missed them as well, unless you've been reading up on all of the theories. There is tons of stuff like this in every episode, and basically what I'm trying to say here is that I am very impressed by the attention to detail that went into this season. And as far as I've read, season 1 was really kind of the prequel to the real story, which will start in season 2, whatever that is, and I am really excited to see it. And speaking of season 2, I really do hope that Anthony Hopkins comes back. People who say that his story came to a nice close in the finale and that he served his purpose within the storyline have a pretty valid point. I mean, he did launch or help launch what he sees as the next step in evolution, and if his story ends here, it will make perfect sense. However, what he said in his last speech could be interpreted differently. His words are, Mozart, Beethoven, and Chopin never died. They simply became music. And if you take that literally, it's not that much of a stretch to imagine Ford becoming a host. He will become one of his creations, especially since we did see him building some mystery host in his secret lab, which we don't know what that was for. Plus, I'm sure most of us want to see more Anthony Hopkins on screen. Personally, I was fascinated watching him the entire season. He is one of those actors who is really good at projecting his thoughts onto his face and into his body language, and you can really tell what he's thinking without having any dialogue accompany that. So even when he's just there listening to other characters, he is very interesting to observe. For example, that scene when the corporate people put on this showcase with Clementine after messing with her code, it is so obvious he's just letting them do it, and he looks like he's enjoying the fact that they think they're smarter than him when in reality he's just playing along. But you can also see a hint of sadness in his face as he watches one of his creations abused in the process. He's wonderful. I really hope we get to see more of him. Something else I hope to see more of in season 2 is the exploration that season 1 has started into humanity and emotions. Those themes were so interesting to me. What makes emotions real? What makes true consciousness? We do see a few characters in season 1 struggle with the fact that their emotional connection to the world is manufactured, whether it's Maeve, who tries to brush off memories of her daughter being killed and tries to tell herself that this is just a host in a storyline she was assigned to, or it's Bernard, who is given memories about his son, or it's the sentient hosts malfunctioning because the memories are making them go crazy. This was one of my favorite things about the show, because I love when writers aren't afraid to dig into that and explore what makes our feelings real and what makes us human from the mental perspective. I hope that they continue going that route, because there's so much more to look into there. I think my biggest concern going into season 2 is the possibility of the show turning into more of an action-driven android takeover type of story, which the basic plot does seem to be heading that way, but I really hope the show retains more of its intellectual qualities as well, because to me, this is where the show is at its most interesting. I would also love to see other parks, since we did see those samurai and the location of Maeve's daughter is in Park 1, which implies that there is more than one park out there. It's not that I want them to follow new characters entirely from now on, but I do hope we get to see the concept of this world expanded, and we get to see some new locations and meet some new characters, as well as see our newly conscious hosts struggle with their circumstances and try to make decisions. We also know that a lot of the hosts end up going crazy on their way to becoming truly conscious, so that can create a lot of issues. I'm assuming the corporate takeover storyline isn't going to just get abandoned, which I thought was the weakest part of this season, but now there is potential for some severe damage control from that point of view, though I don't think they're going to do a full reset or rollback or anything like that, but I do think they could potentially reprogram some of the hosts and try to use them to control the situation. That would be interesting to see as well. We'll see what happens next. For now, HBO is off to a solid start with this series. I think this was a really good first season for Westworld. As I mentioned earlier, I highly recommend rewatching the entire series, because you are going to pick up on so many details and it's going to make everything so much more interesting. I promise you, give it a try. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of Westworld season 1. What are some of your favorite things about the season? What are some of the things you didn't like as much? Also, let me know, do you have any favorite theories? Do you have anything you hope to see in season 2? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!